Okay. So the question is, what is React? I know you must have been hearing about this a lot, like React, React, React. Everybody is talking about React. You've seen a lot of job applications, and the next thing they require for is you must have knowledge about how to develop applications with React. React is a JavaScript library created by a Facebook team, and React is a tool for building user interfaces components. React is used to build single page applications, and React allows us to create reusable UI components. If you remember last week, I made mention of some of the side, what can I say, I told us about the pros and cons of, manipulating the DOM, then adding scripts to your, HTML elements and all those, and sometimes we want to create something that it is reusable. For example, let's say you are creating a navigation bar. You want to add that navigation bar somewhere, and probably you are building the home page. You bring in the navigation bar, and maybe you don't need it for about us page, and you need it for maybe a contact us section, contact us page. You have to bring in the navigation bar instead of you rewriting the code every time. And there is something with developers, and this is the idea of dry, which is do not repeat yourself. So as a developer, you want to be efficient, you want to be effective. You have a lot of projects, you have a lot of things you want to deliver. You would want to like minimize that time you are spending, rewriting code often and often. So it is one of the benefits that React gives us. So React helps you to create interactive web applications made up of components. So if you are familiar with HTML, you can think of components as, fancy custom tags. That is pretty much, that is what they are. They are reusable bits of content and behavior that can be part of a web page. So a component is a written, or let me say, it's written as a plain JavaScript class or a plain JavaScript function. And this is real JavaScript that we are going to deal with today, not a template language or something. So React supports a special syntax called JSX. So and JSX looks a lot like HTML, but it is turned into real JavaScript code by a compiler. So a web page is made up of components laid out in nested tree. Like when we are dealing with the DOM, when we started the DOM section, I showed us a kind of tree-like structure like that. So just like HTML elements, just like you know, the elements can contain other elements. React components can contain other elements too, and they can also contain native elements like div, like buttons and all those. So I'm just, my talk is too much, right? Because I'm just trying to like introduce us to this thing React. Then, you know, after this, I'm going to show us the practical aspects and how you can use your React to build applications. So React, you know, the React component can contain other components, but these components are just functions. And remember, React components can be passed data to display something out, to the DOM. So, you know, in the one-way data flow model, React is, data is only ever passed down the tree from a component to its children. So it's just like a waterfall. It's only going down. It's not going up. It's not going sideways. It's only going down. And React is a way of, is a great way of building interactive UIs. And React is very, very popular right now, though it has been popular for a few years now. And if you are looking to get into a career, as a front-end developer, React is an excellent library to learn. And trust me, React developers are high in demand presently. So, although React is not the only way to build UIs, plenty of other libraries exist. Like we have Vue.js, we have AngularJS, which was developed by Google, and these two are also most popular alternatives. So another thing is before you start learning React.js, I would recommend that you have, experience in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which we've actually gone through over the past few weeks. We've learned how to build websites with HTML, how to style our websites with CSS, and how to make our website interactive with JavaScript. And another thing is you should also have experience, or maybe some experience with the new JavaScript features, like the features that were introduced in the ECMAScript 6, which is ES6. And if you remember, we've gone through the features in ES6, ES7, ES8, and I think we've also we've gone through the ES10 features. So React uses ES6 features. And I would recommend that you should get yourself familiar with some of the ES6 features, like classes, like arrow functions, like the new ways of declaring variables like lets and const. So the question now is, how does React work? React actually creates a virtual DOM. If you remember, at that time we talked about DOM, which is a document object model. So we talked about how we can manipulate the DOM with JavaScript. We talked about how we can, we were using something like inner HTML, create elements, and all those. So React actually mimic that. It creates a virtual DOM in memory. So instead of manipulating the browser's DOM directly, React creates a virtual DOM in memory where it does all the necessary manipulating, before making the changes in the browser DOM. Don't worry, I'm going to show us all this. So I'm just trying to introduce this concept to us. And one thing about React is React only changes what needs to be changed. So React finds out what changes have been made and changes only what needs to be changed. So you will learn the various aspects of how React does this in the rest of the section. To use React, you must have Node and what's it called? You must have Node and npm installed on your PC. And if you are here to go through that, if you are here to know how to install Node and all those, so I will just encourage you to go through the previous videos, just to familiarize yourself. Nothing too serious about that. So in order to learn, build, run, and test React, you have to set up a React environment on your computer. And like any unfamiliar technology, almost every week we learn new things. So React also it has its own learning curve. So with practice, with some patience, with some, research, you get the hang of it. And React is very, very, very simple. So we are going to be using something called Create React App. So if you go to the npm website and check their registry, if you search for React, it's going to show you. So we already know what npm registry is all about. So I don't have to explain that again. So you can just go through this and see the introductory messages and all those. And also, you can also check React's official website, their documentation, and they will give you some steps on, how to create new React app and all those. So, and they also have some recommended toolchain, which I also told us you must have Node.js and some other things. But it is very, very important to have Node.js and npm installed on your system. So, Create React App is a comfortable environment of learning React, and it is the best way to start building a new single page application in React. So Create React App, which is this, it sets up, your development environment. So you can actually go through this and see, and you have to make sure you have Node of version 8.1 and above installed, and npm of version 5.6 and above on your machine to get started. So to start a new React project, so actually come here so that you can see. If you go to the npm registry, we have the npm way of doing things, which is npm I React. Then you also need to like follow some other steps. But I would advise you come to the official documentation and see the steps. So the first thing you have to do is you have to run this code, which is npx create React app, then the name of the app you want to create. So in our own case, we want to, so I'm just going to copy this code. So then you open your terminal, because that is where you have to be running those codes. So we want to, let me, because I already have this installed on my system, because I think if I should be doing that in class, it's going to take like, depending on the network actually, it might take us some time, then we have to wait for it to get installed. So if you don't have this installed already on your system, this is how to get started. You open your terminal, then you go to whatever project folder you want to have your new React application project to be. And presently, you can see that I have a project folder and I open another directory here, which is React. And inside this React folder, I want to run my first command. So what do we have here? We have the npx. So this is actually a command. And instead of running npm and installing something globally, then you can just install it because you want to use this one off. So you can read more about that. We actually talked about npm and all those last week. So then you write the create dash react dash app, then the name of your app. So you can call this anything. My name is Read1. I can say this is Read1, though it might not accept. So my name is Read1 React application. React application. You can call this any name. Or probably, let's say I'm working for Facebook. I can say Facebook, or maybe any company I'm working for. But in my own case, I'm calling this my first. So you can call this whatever name you think you want to call it, because many times you might need to like start a lot of React projects. So I'm calling this my first React project. So you can click enter, and this is going to run. It's going to take a while, maybe some seconds or some minutes, to install that on your system. So once you install that on your system, the next thing you have to do is you do cd, then you go into that project name. So in my own case, my project name is my first React app. So you seed into that, you change it to, change the directory. So once you install your React application successfully, because I've done that before the class, so it's going to give you some messages, something like this, like success, then it's going to give you some commands that you can use, something like yarn start, yarn build, yarn test, and all those. And if you are using npm, it's going to be npm start, npm build, npm test, and all those. I know you are wondering, like, what's the difference between npm and yarn? So I actually showed us something like that last week, but I can just give us a bit, a little hint about it. Both npm and yarn are package managers. Yarn was created by Facebook in order to solve some of the problems they faced with npm. And also, Yarn's installation speed is much more faster than that of npm. And Yarn is kind of, more secure than npm. So you can actually read more about this too, because we are not going to go into that in this section. We still have a long way to go. So if I run yarn start, because I've installed my React application successfully, and I do yarn start, let's see what's going to happen. So this is going to run some commands, and I'm going to explain what all this means in some minutes. So one thing about Create React app is the Create React app will set up everything you need to run a React project or a React application. And once you do maybe yarn start or npm start, a new browser is going to pop up with your newly created React application. So if you can see that starting development server. So we can just wait for this for some seconds, and let's see what's gonna come up. So if you do yarn start and your browser fails to pop up, you can copy the link that is going to provide for you, which is a local host link with a port. So you can copy that, and you can open your browser, then inside your browser, you can actually, paste the link and you are good to go. But then let's wait for it and let's see what's going to happen. And while that is running, so that we won't wait for that, um, let's look into our project structure. So if you install the React application successfully, you are going to have this kind of structure. So I can see that before we go into that folder structure, let's see what's happening here. We have compiled successfully. So that means we can run this project here, you know. So if I copy this, because probably on a normal day, my browser should open up automatically, but I have a lot of browsers and maybe it's finding it hard to detect the particular browser to use. So if I do localhost 3000, as you see, I have my React application running. You see that? And it gives us some options here: edit src/app.js, save and reload, and you can see what's happening. So if I go back here, before it says we should go into this app and we can edit some things and see what's up. So before we go into that, we have some folder structure here. I think it's okay if we explain what all this means. So if you look into the project structure, you see a public directory here and a source directory, src, source. So along with the regular Node.js folder, then we have the git ignore, we have the readme, we have package.json, we have yarn.log, and all those. So in the public directory, if you click this and you open this up, we have some files here. But the important file is this index.html file. So I'm going to open that up. And this is very similar to the static HTML index.html file that we've been creating for some weeks and we'll be working with. So inside of this, we have some other things, we have some meta tags and all those in the head tag. Then if you check in the body, we only have this. Though we can just ignore this for now. We have this, and you can see that we don't have anything else. We have just a div with ID of roots. So this time, no libraries, no scripts are being loaded, except this. So if we close this and we go into the source directory, this folder contains all our React code. So let's just take a minute and understand what is happening here. We have Node modules folder here. This folder is part of the npm system. So npm puts locally installs of packages in Node modules folder. So it contains the current package routes and basically the packages you want to use by calling import to your project. So everything goes here. Then we have the public folder, and this folder contains the index.html and manifest.json. So these two files are very, very important. So all other things are just something related to our project, which you can change. We have the React Favicon. So in case I'm working with Facebook, I would rather use Facebook Favicon here. Then we have the logo, which you can change to your own logo. So we have the different size of the logos, depending on the size of the devices they are being rendered on. Then we have this package.json, which we've actually talked about. So this file lists the packages your project depends on. So if you remember, we talked about dependencies last week. So what are dependencies and the purpose of having them there? So this file lists the packages your project depends on and which versions of a package your project can use. It also makes your build reproducible and therefore easier to share with other developers. And if you check here, we have this section which is for scripts. I actually explained this last week. Scripts is of particular interest here. You can see that we have the start, the build, test, eject, and they point to some commands here. So we have the React script start, React script build, and all those. So this specifies that when you run commands like npm start or yarn start or npm build or yarn build and all those, it will actually run these commands over here. So React script is a set of scripts from the Create React App Starter Pack. React script starts, this one, it sets up the development environment, which is what I did the other time. I did yarn start and it sets up my development environment. So, and it's going to start a server as well as auth module reloading, so that whenever I make a change here, it's going to change immediately on this particular page. So if we go back into my slide, a typical React application looks something like this figure over here. There is a root app that imports other child components, which in turn imports other child components. So data flows from root to children through React properties and flows back, back up using callback functions. So this is the design pattern used by any basic React application. So at this point, we should be able to start building any single page application by tweaking, our app.js like it's given to us here. So let's go back into the code. So far, so good. We have all this, and we have our application running. And the question now is, somebody is about to talk. Please let's move on. So how do we change content, or how do we add content? How do we add our own content to the website? If you look into the app.js, into the source folder, there's a file called app.js, and just open it, it will look like this. So if you check, it's basically what we have here. Everything we have here, we have it here. So you can see it, edits, blah, 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 save to reload, and all those. So we have to try and change all this content and save the file and see what we are going to get. So once we change this, notice what is going to happen when you save. So here, I'm just going to delete some things because we don't need it. Presently, we don't need this logo because this logo is React logo. So if I save now, you can see compiling. And if I go back, the logo is gone. And what else can we change? I don't need this. I don't even need everything here. I don't need everything here. So I can just delete everything. And if I save now, you can see that, nothing is here again. So let's put our own, and I don't need these two because the logo and everything is gone. So let's put our own file. So I can just say, let's say h1. So if I do h1 and I do hello world, this is okay. So I can just do h1 hello world. Then after this, I can do h2. Then this is my first React application. So if I save this now, you see it's compiling. If you go up, you see it. I have hello world. This is my first React application. That's cool. So now you have React environment set up on your computer, and you are ready to build, your app with React. And you also notice some things, like if we go back into this index.js file, you see something like import React from React, import React DOM from React DOM. These two import statements are very, very important. Oops. Hello, guys. Can you please give me 3 minutes? I want to make some changes. So if you look in the index.js file, at the top, there are two imports here. So which are very, very important. So for now, I'm just going to take, because we don't need this. We don't need this. We don't need this for now. So we don't need this for now. So there are two major imports here. We have this, the first import, which is import React from React, and the import React DOM from React DOM. And we have this React DOM.render. So the thing is, React's goal is in many ways to render HTML in a web page. React renders HTML to the web page by using a function called react.dom.render, something like this. Let me delete everything. So this is a function. It uses this to render, HTML to the web page. So, React DOM takes two arguments. This is the first argument and the second argument. So it takes in two arguments. It takes in the HTML code and an HTML element. The purpose of this React DOM.render function is to display the specified HTML code inside the specified HTML elements. And if we check, let me just open it to the side. If you go into our public, then index, so let me just open this to the side, open to the side, okay. So if you check inside this index.html, I told us that the only thing that we have here that is very important is this div with ID roots. And you can see that something is similar here. So if we go back, to our DOM manipulation class, if you remember, you see we are saying document.get element by ID, and then what is the ID? Roots. So we are getting this element by ID, and whatever we put here, we want it to render inside this element. So basically, everything we have inside our React code is going to come here, and is going to be created here. So if I do something like this, just to explain what I mean. So if I let's say I delete this and I do something like let's say inside of here, I say this is going to be a paragraph, and inside there I say hello read one. So if I say hello read one, so if I save this now, let's see what's going to happen, and I go back into my code, it's going to reload. You see that hello read one. So it is rendering whatever HTML element we have. It's going to render it, taking the ID of that particular div, and it's going to put it here. It's just like, it's the same way like, doing key hello read one here, like I have it over there. So that is what is actually happening. So I'm going to delete all this. So that means I can also add some other things to this in case I want to write some, what's it called? Just normal HTML code. I can say hi. So if I save this now, that is going to upload and it's going to update, So that means I can write my React application, and I can also write my normal HTML code here, and everything is going to run. But then we are focusing on React, so we don't want to write, HTML code because we've gone past that. So the result of whatever you have here is going to get displayed in this ID of div of ID roots in the index.html file. So another thing is the HTML code in this section uses JSS, something called JSX. I know you haven't seen this before. You probably this is going to be the first time you are hearing this. So we are going to be using JSX in this section, and JSX allows you to write HTML tag inside JavaScript code. So don't worry if this syntax is unfamiliar. You will learn more about JSX very soon. And it is very, very interesting, very, very simple. It's just like writing HTML, and we are writing it inside JavaScript. So I'm going to undo this back to the way we have it. And we import this and we save this. So, and inside here, let's create, okay. So instead of having this for now, just to show some other examples. So let's say I have a const, I have a variable, and the name of my variable is const react, and it's going to return some elements, some HTML elements, so some HTML codes back. So let's say I want to have a table. So, and inside this table, I want to have a row, table row, and inside this row, I want to have the table head to be, let's say, name, and we have another row. table row, and inside this row, I want to have the data for the table, which is table data, and I say read one, and I use I copy this and I replace it with this. I just want to show us some things before we move on so that we understand what is actually happening. So you can see that I write my HTML, I save it inside a variable, which is JavaScript variable. And I'm rendering this variable here, like take whatever that is here, render it in any div that have this ID of rows, which is there. So if we go back to the front page, you see that I have a table with my name read one. So I'm just trying to like use this to explain something slow. Let me just have another table data here. So let's say I want to have another table data. So this is going to be my surname, you know. So if I do Balogun here and I save, go back, you know. So I just want to show you like everything is getting rendered. So that is that. Then, you know, if we go into the root node, we call this root node. So the root node is the HTML element where you want to display the results of, you know, the result of your React code. So this root node, it is like a container for content managed by React. It does not have to be div, because you can see that we have div here. So let me just comment this out for now. So it doesn't have to be div, it can be anything, you know. It doesn't have to be root of id root, it can be anything. I can change this to, instead of div, I can change it to p tag, you know, and I can say instead of root, you can just call this read one. So if I call this read one and I come here and I change this to select elements by ID, and the name of ID is read one. So if I go back to the home page, we should have the same results. You can see that. So it doesn't have to be div, it doesn't have to be, you know, just make sure like whatever ID you have there, you are selecting it inside your React application. So I'm just going to undo this to the default way of, you know, so I'm going to undo this too. So the question now that I know you might have is, Ridwan, you made mention of JSX. What is JSX? Don't worry. I know you are like, are we trying to learn a new language? We are not learning anything new. It's just some new syntaxes, and you know, it's something you are going to understand. JSX stands for JavaScript. That's a JavaScript XML. So JSX allows us to write HTML in React. JSX makes it easier to write and add HTML in React. It allows us to write HTML elements in JavaScript and place them in the DOM without anything like, you know, if you remember, without anything like, you know, create element that we use while manipulating the DOM in the DOM, or something like append child that we used during the DOM section. So we don't have to be using this anymore. So JSX is going to convert HTML tags that you have, like something you have over here, into React elements. So you are not actually required to use JSS, but JSS makes it easier to write React applications. So let us demonstrate this with maybe some examples, and we can understand what is actually happening. So instead of having this, I can say, let's say we have a variable with use JSX. I just want to show us how we can write, you know, React applications with JSS and without JSX. So if I do, my JSS is going to return, is going equals to this value. So let's say this one is going to be, I use JSX, and I can render this to the DOM through here. So if I say this and I save and I go back to my web page, I should see, oops, there's an error. So let me just go back, const JSS. So let me just capture this. So let's see what we have. It's not getting refreshed. Target container is not the DOM elements. Okay. So let me check. Maybe I failed to save. So let's see what we have. Okay, I failed to save the file the other time. So I use GSS. So if you want to write your application without the use of GSS, you can do something like, let's say, const no GSS. So you can see, you can decide for yourself which one is much more um, easier. Create elements, and here I'll say what's the element you want to create, H1 element, and you know, an empty object, then the content. I do not use JSX. So let's just render this to the page and see. So you can decide for yourself which one is much more easier in terms of writing your code. So if I go back here, you see, I do not use JSX. I can see the lines of code that we have here. It's very long. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of confusing. And so JSS allows us to write HTML directly within JavaScript code. JSS is an extension of the JavaScript language based on ES6, and it is translated into regular JavaScript at runtime. So expressions in JSS, you know, you can actually use curly braces to write expressions in JSS. The expression can be a variable, it can be a property, or any other valid JavaScript expression. JSS will execute the expression and return the result. So let's say, for example, so instead of, let's say, uh, here I can say, let's say my React now, a variable, and inside there I have H1, and I can say React is, let me say React is 5 times 5. You can see that I use curly braces times better with JSX. So if I render this into the DOM through this and I save, so let's see what we have. You see that React is 5 times 5 times better with GSS. So GSS allows us to write JavaScript in the HTML. So with the help of these curly brackets. So I think we have to move on. So another thing I want to explain is, you know, GSS will throw an error if the HTML syntax is not correct, or if the HTML misses a parent um, element. For example, let's say I want to write my React, and inside there I have a div, and inside this div, let's say I have H1, and I have another, let's say I have H2 tag here, and inside there I am H1, oops, and inside there I am H2. So if I return this now, let's see, we have something rendered into the browser. But then if, you know, you can see that this is wrapped inside a div. So let's say I want to have multiple things and, you know, they don't have any parent element to wrap them inside. So if I save this now, we are going to have some errors. And React is so good in such a way that it gives you, if you have any error in your code, it's going to point, you know, point you at the particular position where the error is located. You can see that we have some error here. Failed to compile, passing error, adjacent JSS element must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. You didn't need, you know, all this. So, and if you go into your browser too, you have the same error message here. So that this is going to tell you, like, you know what, on line 9 there is an error. And what is the error? This is the error. So always take your time. If you have any error while writing your code, React is going to point, you know, directly to where the error is located. Like, you have error on line so, and if you come here to, you know, I have that same error here. So if you have multiple elements, make sure the elements are wrapped within a parent element. So let's go straight into React components. So let me save this and let's see that the error is done. So I save that. I wait for that for that to load, and you can see that the error is gone. We have, you know, the result back.